Hello, my name is Caitlin Kibbe, and this is my identity text. I have titled it The Story of My Family, How They Have Shaped the Woman I Have Become. Throughout this video, I will explain where my family comes from, information about myself and my goals, two pieces of literature that I connect to, and finally music that represents myself and my beliefs. When thinking about who I am, there is a lot that comes to mind. My parents would always tell me that I am a mutt, which refers to the idea that I am made up of many different nationalities. However, it was not until this project that answer was not conclusive. My family and I researched and called upon elder family members in order to find out more detailed information. I discovered that my family descendants were made up of many different nationalities. My predominant nationalities are Canadian, Italian, English, and American. This is an image of my family tree. In order to complete this family tree, I had to talk to my parents and grandparents in order to find all the information I needed. To begin, I am at the bottom, and to the left is my mother, Kristen Marshall. Above her is her mom, Lois, and her father, Thomas. And above them is Lois's mother, Dorothy, and father, Aaron, and Thomas's mother and father, Philomena and Louis. Then going back down to me, my dad, Russell, is to the right. Above him is his mother, Priscilla, and his father, Carl. Above them is Priscilla's mother and father, Virginia and Richard, and Carl's mother and father, Eunice and Clayton. This is a family tree of my grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents on my mother's side. I had to put this on a separate slide because I did not have enough room to make the family tree. So my grandmother, Lois, is on the left, and above her is her mother, Dorothy, and father, Aaron. Above them is Dorothy's mother and father, Mary Jane and James McLeod, and Aaron's mother and father, Emma and Aaron. Then on the right side is Thomas's mother and father, Philomena and Louis. Philomena's parents are Rosa and Florindo, and Louis's parents are Branch and Leo. Mary Jane, James, Rosa, and Florindo were all born out of the United States, and this has allowed me to see where my Canadian and Italian heritage stems from. First, I will discuss the story of my great-great-grandparents on my grandmother's side. Mary Jane, my great-great-grandmother, was born in Canada. When interviewing my grandmother, she said she did not specifically know which part of Canada she was from, but she was able to tell me that Mary Jane was born in Canada. Mary Jane met her husband, James McLeod, in Canada, and they moved to Rhode Island to be with his family. His mother and father were living in Rhode Island, and he wanted to be closer to them, so they decided to move. However, Dorothy's parents remained in Canada. From there, they had a child named Dorothy McLeod, my great-grandmother. She was born in Johnston, Rhode Island, and then 30 years later, she gave birth to Lois, my grandmother, in Rhode Island. This is where our family continues to live. This shows me where my Canadian heritage stems from. When interviewing my grandmother, she said these were Dorothy's most famous words. "No one is any better than you, but you are no better than anyone." She told me stories about how her mother was strict when she was growing up. Therefore, this quote embodies who her mother was because she always stressed the importance of being equal and respectful. To the right is a picture of Canada, and next to that is a picture of Dorothy McLeod. Next is the story of my great-great-grandparents on my grandfather's side. It begins with Rosa Vasella, my great-great-grandmother, who was born in 1887 in Caserta, Italy. She married Florindo Ranieri, who was also born in the province of Caserta. In the early 1900s, Florindo immigrated to the United States in search for a job and opened a corner store in New York City. Rose, his wife, and their son Benjamin stayed in Italy until Florindo had enough money to bring them into the country. Within a few years of his business opening, Rose and Benjamin came over by boat and settled in New York. This shows me where my Italian heritage stems from. From there, Philomena, my great-grandmother, was born in Providence, Rhode Island. Philomena gave birth to Thomas, my grandfather, in 1944. Our family continues to live in Rhode Island. When interviewing my grandfather Thomas, he said, "My grandfather always stressed the importance of family and being appreciative of the life we have." My grandfather talked about how his dad would always talk to him about how challenging it was to leave his wife and child, but that he knew he had to come to make the sacrifice. Talking with my grandfather truly was very insightful because he was so happy to talk about his family and where they came from. To the right is a picture of Philomena and the province of Caserta in which she was born. Next is an image of another family tree of my grandparents and great-grandparents on my father's side. On the bottom left is my dad's mother, Priscilla, and above her is her parents, Virginia and Richard. Virginia's parents were Walter and Beatrice, and Richard's parents were Charles and Lena. Then on the bottom right is my Grandpa Carl, and his parents were Eunice and Clayton. Eunice's parents were Frederick and Ethel, and Clayton's parents were Erlon and Leona. This family tree has helped me to learn more about my family and who my ancestors are. This is the story of my father's side. Learning about his side of the family has helped me to see where my English and American heritage stems from. My great and great-great-grandparents on my father's side were all born in the United States. However, their parents and grandparents predominantly immigrated from England. Virginia, my great-great-grandmother, was born and raised in Maine with her 4 brothers and sisters. She met her husband Richard in Rhode Island when he was serving in the Army. Richard was one of 9 siblings who was also born and raised in Alabama. Virginia and Richard settled in Rhode Island to have their family. Sadly, when I was talking to my dad and his brother, they knew limited information about Eunice and Clayton. However, I did find out that they were born and raised in Connecticut and established their family in Rhode Island. For the last 4 generations on my father's side, everyone has been born and raised in America, which helps me to explain where my American heritage comes from. Above is a picture of England, and below is a picture of my grandparents and great-grandparents. Now that I have explained my family history and ancestors, I will now explain my story and who I am. I was born in Warwick, Rhode Island on December 19, 1998. I lived in Coventry, Rhode Island with my mother, Kristen, and my father, Russell, until I was 5 years old. We lived in a small 2-bedroom house. Then, when my mother got pregnant with my brother, my parents realized that we needed a bigger home. We decided to move to Smithfield, Rhode Island because it had a great school system, and my parents found a house that they thought was perfect for our family. I attended 1st grade through 12th grade in Smithfield's public school system and graduated Smithfield High School in June of 2016. As far as my college education, my family has always stressed the importance of me going to college. I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher as a little girl, and I would always play pretend school. Therefore, it was no surprise to my parents when I decided I wanted to become a teacher. At this point, I am currently a junior at the University of Rhode Island. I am majoring in elementary education with a minor in psychology. I am also a part of the TESOL certification program. I am thoroughly enjoying this program and all that it has to offer in terms of learning how to support students whose native language is not English. My goal is to graduate from URI in 2020 and continue my studies at the university to receive my master's in education and in the TESOL program. For the majority of my life, I was a dancer. I danced at the Carolyn Dutra Dance Studio for over 13 years and taught dance to students ages 3 to 13 for around 5 years. What I enjoy about dance is that it has allowed me to express myself and shape me into the young woman that I have become today. It showed me the importance of teamwork, dedication, and discipline. This is something that I will carry over into my work as a teacher because it incorporates many of the same ideas and concepts. In addition, I traveled to New York City every summer and attended dance classes at the Broadway Dance Center. I took classes from teachers all around the world, and it has showed me how culture impacts their style of dance. For example, I learned ballroom dancing, ballet, tap, jazz, contemporary, and all of these styles of dance represent a different part of the world. This allowed me to become more culturally aware of the variety of styles and techniques that form because of their specific culture. This correlates to the idea that children are shaped by their environments. Another strong passion of mine is traveling and experience all that the world has to offer. During the spring of 2018, I traveled to Paris, Nice, and London. I experienced many different cultures, languages, and foods based upon that area that I was in. This trip has taught me a lot in terms of the language barrier between myself and those in Europe. In Paris and Nice, people mostly spoke French, and at times I found it very difficult to communicate. For example, I was trying to buy a train ticket and I needed assistance from the woman that was working at the ticket booth. However, she didn't speak English. This allowed me to understand how some students feel when they enter an American school with little understanding of the English language. I want to be a teacher that is able to support and enhance the learning of all ESL students. Next, I've included some of my favorite pictures from my trip. In the top left corner is an image of me in front of the Louvre, and the next picture to the right of that was taken in London next to their iconic red telephone booths. The next picture is me in front of the castle in London, where the Queen and Prince live. Ironically, I arrived one day after Harry and Meghan's wedding, so I was able to experience the excitement and joy that the wedding brought to London. The picture on the far right is the iconic church that was located in London. The bottom row of images were all taken in Nice, and I'm sure that you can tell from those pictures how beautiful the landscape was. This trip was definitely something that I will never forget, and I am looking forward to hopefully going back one day in the future. Now I will connect my life and ideals to two pieces of literature. The first is the book series Goodnight Moon. My parents would always read the Goodnight book series to me as a child. Each book tells a story about a different location, and it has allowed me to see all the important landmarks and aspects of each location. These books provide insights to cultures and how people from each culture differ in their norms and beliefs. Every family trip that we took, my parents would let me pick out one Goodnight book. I started a collection that I will make sure to pass down to my children one day. One of the quotes that I found important from the book Goodnight Moon was, "Good night noises everywhere." Although this quote may be simple, to me it focuses on the idea that everyone says goodnight regardless of where they are in the world. These books show that wherever you are, no matter the language you speak or the culture and nationality you are from, we all come together and say goodnight. The second piece of literature that I am connecting to aligns with my values as a future teacher and what my parents have always taught me growing up. I chose the book titled I Am Malala, a book about inspiring change in education. This inspirational book is centered around how Malala, a 14-year-old girl, risked her life to stand up for her right to receive an education. My parents have always taught me the importance of standing up for what I believe in. Therefore, I thought this book captured the morals that my parents have instilled in me. In addition, it showed me how one person can make an impact and change the world for others. My goal is to be a teacher that stands up for students and provides them with an education that prepares them for the world. The TESOL program has taught me that ELLs have struggled to receive the support that they need in order to succeed within the classroom. This book has inspired me to do all that I can to ensure that all students have an equal chance at learning. There are 4 important and powerful quotes that have influenced and furthered my ideas about being a teacher. The first one is, "One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world." This shows that it only takes one teacher to change and influence a child's life. I want to be a teacher for students that makes them realize their full potential and that they can do anything they put their mind to. The next quote shows the importance of education. It states, "Let us pick up our books and our pens," I said. "They are our most powerful weapons." The third quote is, "When the world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful." As a future educator, this shows me that I want my students to have beliefs and stand up for those beliefs. In conjunction, I will do what I can to stand up for my students and provide them with the best education possible. The last quote is, "When someone takes away your pens, you realize quite how important education is." This quote makes me realize the value of education and how students complain about going to school. When Malala is risking her life to fight for education, therefore we have to learn to appreciate the right that we have to go to school. Overall, this piece of literature captures the importance of education and how it is a crucial part of our lives. The first song that I've chose to incorporate was "I Hope You Dance." And I chose this song because I agree with the main message of it. It talks about the importance of taking chances and not being afraid of what could happen. I believe that it is important to live life to the fullest, and this song embodies that idea. The second song that I chose was "When You Wish Upon a Star" in the movie Pinocchio. The first reason that I chose this song was because my parents would always sing it to me when I was growing up. In addition, Pinocchio is one of my favorite movies, and my parents loved the message and ideals of this song. I learned that the movie was based out of Florence, Italy, and this connects to my Italian heritage. This last slide captures my goals for the future. My first goal is to continue to travel and see more that the world has to offer in terms of culture and history. My dream is to travel to each continent and as many places that I have time for within that continent. In addition, I want to continue my professional studies and receive my doctorate. I want to become a teacher who is passionate and devoted to helping all students receive an equal education. I will push myself to be the best teacher that I can and provide my students with a successful and effective learning experience. Once the time is right, I would also like to get married and start a family. Finally, I want to continue to be a strong and independent woman that is brave and not afraid to take chances. Lastly, here is an image of my references that I have cited throughout my identity text. Finally, thank you for taking the time to listen to my story and how my family has helped shape the woman I am today.